and I'm here with St. John's at NCYC. I was lucky enough to get to go a couple years ago in 2019, and so I'm really excited to be back at it. For those of you who don't know what I do, I have a YouTube channel called Kid Catholic, where every Tuesday I post a different apologetic video on a wide range of Catholic topics, and that's led to some amazing speaking engagements. So I've been able to give talks in several states and a lot throughout Oklahoma, and so it has been a blessing. I'm actually planning on getting a vlog this trip and post it, which I haven't done in a while, so that'll be fun. And if you just see me recording and talking to myself, I'm not being weird. I'm recording a video. But yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about encountering God and encountering God on this trip specifically also, because when I came here a couple years ago, that wasn't really something that I had in mind. I knew that I was going to be spiritually impacted. I knew that it was going to be a fun trip, that I'd probably learn a lot, but I didn't expect much to change when I went home. I didn't expect much to change spiritually. But the reality is, spiritual life, our own spiritual life, is something that is so important. It's of the utmost importance. It is of the number one importance. And so when I went to NCYC a couple years ago, my one really thought was, it's fun, I get to miss a couple days of school, I get to go to Indiana, and of course those are good thoughts to have. But it's a lot more than that. I wasn't prepared to be spiritually impacted the way I was, to encounter God. Because there's a difference between just hearing a couple talks and going to Mass and saying, yeah, I want to start praying more, which is a good thing, don't get me wrong, but then there's a difference between truly encountering God and encountering Him on a deep spiritual level, on a level that affects our entire world, affects our entire spiritual health, our entire spiritual life. Because ultimately, just taking a step back at the end of the day, we're here so that we can get to heaven. And not just so that we can get ourselves to heaven, but as many other people to heaven as possible. And so, with God, we should view our relationship with Him like a normal human friendship, because that's what it is, right? He wants to be our best friend. And just like a normal human friendship, you have to have conversation. You have to spend time with each other. And we have that conversation with God through prayer. It's just like talking to Him, right? And not only, just think about it like a normal human. I can't point out one person in here, I can't point out you and just say, in order for us to build a friendship, I'm just going to talk to you and just never wait for your response, never want to listen to what you say back. For a normal human friendship, there's listening involved, right? For any real healthy friendship, and it's the exact same thing with God. So when I went to NCYC in 2019, I wasn't really good at the listening part, right? When I would pray, I sort of thought of it as like a genie, right? I wanted things, like God is a genie, right? I want this, I want that. And of course, it's okay to ask for things sometimes, but ultimately, listening is such a big part of prayer that we forget. And that's something that NCYC taught me so much. Here, it was one of the first times that I was able to fully encounter God on such a deep level that I had never experienced before. It changed my entire spiritual life to where when I went home, I actually was able to start not just an inconsistent prayer life, but a consistent day-to-day prayer life. Because right now, I think it's safe to say that our generation has more distractions than any generation ever. We have our cell phones, we have social media, and again, those aren't necessarily bad things. I'm on social media, right? I like those things. But it's different when we are so focused on that we lose our spiritual life. Like if we're so focused on taking pictures at NCYC instead of encountering God, you know what I'm trying to say? Our cell phones are such a distraction in our day-to-day life. I say for most of us, take up more time than prayer. It's a common thing in our generation. Our screen time is probably going to be more than our prayer time. Now, I'm not saying that when we get home from NCYC, we're going to be able to get home and then boom, day one, more prayer time than screen time. It's not going to work like that. It's going to take a lot more than that. It's going to take baby steps, right? It takes 20 days to create to happen. So let's say, again, we're all in here going to be on a different level in our spiritual life. Some of us may barely pray at all. Some of us may pray a ton every day. Whatever it is, we can always grow our spiritual life. So let's say we get home from NCYC and we're really moved and we've encountered God and we know that we want to build up a spiritual life so that we can achieve that ultimate goal of getting to heaven and therefore helping others get to heaven as well. Because it sounds difficult, but it's a lot simpler than we make it out to be. So let's say we get home and we decide, okay, I want to start a prayer life. Maybe it's 5 minutes a day at first. In fact, not just 5 minutes a day, 5 minutes in a specific location in our house. We know exactly what we're going to do. What worked for me is I would always set a time that I wanted to pray, and then it would never happen. So you know how you can name your alarm on your phone? You can name it different things. Well, I was sitting there playing 2K, and I had an alarm for when I was going to pray. So I'm going to pray during this time. And I named the alarm, "Pray Right Now or I'm Disappointed in You." And so I'm sitting there playing, and then that came up, and I was in the middle of it was Game 4 of the NBA Finals in my career, and I was like, really? So then I ended up seeing that and having an actual plan for what I was going to do, and I had a spot set up in my room, and so I set down the Xbox, and then I moved, and I actually started that prayer. And then continuing that every day, keeping ourselves accountable, right? And continuing that until, again, 20 days to make a habit, we up it to 10. And then 15 minutes, and then 20, until it gets further and further and further, that our prayer life is so, so important. Because, yeah, our physical well-being is important. But our spiritual well-being is something that gets looked over all the time. It really does. We don't give it enough attention as it should. And so, as we depart for Indiana, and as we get ready to go experience NCYC again, not again for me, as we get to go experience NCYC, either for the first time or again, I think that we need to just be open to understand wherever our spiritual life is, it can always grow. And our spiritual life should always grow. We ourselves, physically, we stop growing to a certain point. Our spiritual life should never. Our spiritual life should continue growing regardless. And so, heading into NCYC, we need to keep that in mind. We need to have an open heart. Whatever talk we're going to hear that maybe affects us or speaks to us more than something else, Mass with so many people there, right? That's really impactful. Adoration, whatever it might be, we need to be willing to encounter God. So that when we go home, something actually changes. So that when we go home, we're actually willing to take steps to improve our spiritual health and to improve our spiritual life. Not just say that we're going to, because it's a lot easier said than done. So NCYC is a blast. I've already told some of the people at my table, it's going to be the best weekend ever. I was so spiritually impacted, and I made so many friendships that I'm excited to make new friendships with some of the people who I may not know as well. And I'm really excited. I know that we should all be really excited and be ready to encounter God on this absolutely amazing trip. Thank you.